Let's go Dolphins! Something big may be happening within the Miami Dolphins organization, and if what's being discussed behind the scenes actually comes to pass, it could completely change the future of this team in ways that no one is fully prepared for. But before revealing more, be sure to like this post if you truly believe in the Miami Dolphins and still trust the direction the team is taking. And I want to see who the real optimists are. Leave a comment right now saying, I believe in the Dolphins, because what we're about to discuss will test how much you really trust this franchise. Let's get straight into it. One of the hottest discussions right now revolves around a potential trade scenario involving De'Von Achane. The idea? Moving him, along with a late-round pick, in exchange for a first-round selection, specifically around pick 28. Now, at first glance, this feels like a tough pill to swallow. Achane has shown flashes of being a dynamic weapon, someone who looks like a building block for the offense. His explosiveness, his ability to change games in a single play, it's rare. But here's where things get interesting. The philosophy behind this potential move is rooted in roster value and long-term strategy. Running backs, even highly talented ones, are positions where production can often be replaced more easily than others. And if a team is offering you a first-round pick for a running back, that's where the conversation shifts from emotional attachment to cold, calculated decision-making. Because imagine this scenario, the Dolphins suddenly hold 3 first-round picks. That changes everything. Now you're not just filling one need, you're potentially addressing multiple major holes in a single draft. Cornerback, edge rusher, offensive line, even wide receiver depth. You could attack all of it at once. That kind of flexibility can fast-track a rebuild or even push a competitive roster over the top if you hit on those selections. And don't forget, Miami would still have additional picks in the second and third rounds, giving them even more ammunition to reshape the roster. The argument here isn't that Achane is invaluable, it's that the value of a first-round pick might outweigh what a single running back can provide, no matter how explosive he is. Now, shifting gears slightly, there's another name generating buzz, Jordyn Brooks. Coming off a strong stretch and even reaching all-pro level in 2025, Brooks has elevated his game since arriving in Miami. But here's the dilemma. He's approaching 30 and entering the final year of his contract. Any team trading for him would likely need to extend him, and that affects his trade value. Realistically, the expectation is that Miami could get around a third-round pick in return. And that opens up another strategic possibility, packaging Brooks with a first-round pick to move up in the draft. That kind of maneuver could allow the Dolphins to target a higher-tier prospect while still maximizing asset value. And then there's the offensive line discussion, where a name like Carver Willis has quietly entered the conversation. A later-round prospect with solid production, including strong run-blocking grades and versatility across both tackle positions. He represents the kind of developmental depth teams look for on day 3. He may not be a headline-grabbing pick, but these are the types of players that can quietly become contributors if developed correctly. All of this ties into a bigger question about the Dolphins' draft philosophy. Should they trade down to accumulate more picks? Should they stay aggressive and move up? Or should they stand firm and take the best player available when their turn comes? Because at the end of the day, this front office is facing a defining moment. Do they double down on current talent and continuity? Or do they make bold, potentially controversial moves that could reshape the roster for years to come? Because this is where things get even more intense behind the scenes, and not everyone inside the Dolphins organization is thinking the same way. When you start stacking up all these possibilities, trading a player like De'Von Achane, potentially moving on from Jordyn Brooks, and even considering trading down in the draft, you begin to see a front office that might be preparing for something bigger than just running it back. This feels like a team that understands it has multiple gaps to fill and is looking for the most efficient way to do it. And here's something that hasn't been talked about enough. Flexibility is becoming more valuable than star power in today's NFL. When you have multiple early round picks, you control the board. You're not reacting, you're dictating. That's a completely different position to be in compared to previous years where Miami had to be selective and cautious. But let's go deeper into that draft room mentality. There are names being evaluated that could immediately step in and change the identity of this team. The idea of targeting positions like cornerback, edge rusher, and offensive line early isn't random. It reflects where this roster still has vulnerabilities. And if Miami can walk away from the first round having addressed even 2 of those at a high level, that's a massive win. Now, another interesting layer to all of this is the quarterback discussion that came up. The comparison between Fernando Mendoza and Malik Willis might seem hypothetical, but it reveals something important about how teams think. In a vacuum, building around a younger quarterback on a rookie deal gives you more financial flexibility. But for Miami, the reality is different. They didn't have the draft position to realistically go get a top-tier prospect like Mendoza without sacrificing multiple future assets. So instead, the Dolphins made the smarter, more practical move by going after Malik Willis in free agency. It's not about chasing the flashiest option. It's about making the move that aligns with your roster timeline and available resources. And this is where the tension builds. Because fans always want the big splash, the headline move, the superstar acquisition. But championships are often built through depth, smart drafting, and calculated risks. Even at wide receiver, expectations need to be managed. There's been talk about Miami possibly going after a receiver early in the draft, but internally, that doesn't seem likely unless the value is simply too good to pass up. The focus appears to be elsewhere, which might frustrate some fans who want more firepower, but again, it comes back to priorities. So now you've got a front office weighing all of this. Do we cash in on a high-value running back for draft capital? Do we move a veteran linebacker before he hits free agency? Do we trade up for elite talent or trade down to build depth? Do we stick to positional needs or trust the board? These are not small decisions. These are franchise-shaping choices. And I'll tell you this, the moves they make in this upcoming draft could define the next 5 years of Miami Dolphins football. And this is exactly where things could take an unexpected turn. Because internally, the Dolphins are not just evaluating talent, they're evaluating timing, contracts, and how quickly this team can realistically become a Super Bowl contender again. When you look at everything we've discussed so far, there's a clear pattern emerging. Miami is at a crossroads between staying competitive now and building something more sustainable for the future. And that's why these trade ideas, especially involving key players, are even being considered in the first place. Take a step back and think about this. If the Dolphins decide to move on from players like Devon Achane or even explore offers for Jordan Brooks, it's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of a front office trying to maximize value at the right time. Because in the NFL, holding onto a player too long can sometimes hurt more than letting them go a year early. And there's another layer here that fans need to pay attention to, the depth of upcoming draft classes. There's already internal belief that future drafts, especially the 2027 class, could be loaded with high-end talent. So accumulating picks now doesn't just help immediately, it gives Miami ammunition to either draft elite players later or package those picks to move up when the time is right. Now imagine this scenario for a second. The Dolphins walk into the draft with multiple first-round picks, extra day 2 selections, and a clear plan. Suddenly, they're not boxed into one direction. They can pivot. If a top prospect falls, they go get him. If another team gets desperate, Miami can trade back and collect even more assets. That's how smart organizations stay ahead. But of course, there's risk in all of this. Because if you trade away proven talent and miss on those draft picks, the backlash is immediate. Fans will question everything. The locker room could feel it. And the pressure on this front office would skyrocket. That's why every single move has to be calculated. And let's not forget, this team still believes it can compete. This isn't a full rebuild. It's more like a retooling on the fly, trying to stay relevant while quietly setting up a stronger foundation for the future. So when you hear debates about trading down, passing on certain positions, or even avoiding a wide receiver early in the draft, it's not random. It's all part of a bigger vision. A vision that prioritizes balance, depth, and long-term flexibility over short-term excitement. Now everything comes down to execution, because we've seen teams with multiple first-round picks completely change their future, and we've also seen teams waste those same opportunities. The difference? Decision-making under pressure.